Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very passionate about portfolios and appreciate the opportunity to talk about that today. So what I really want to do is share from my personal experience when building a portfolio and how it's affected my career over the years. There could be some things that are kind of opinionated, or maybe you have a different opinion or experience, and that's okay, but would definitely love to hear about that and talk about some questions at the end as well. So, kind of just a little bit of background about myself as we dive in. So, I've been writing code since I was a child, pretty much. It's all I've ever done. I grew up in a small town and moved to Oklahoma City about 7 years ago. I actually started my first role in marketing. So I did a lot of graphic design, print design, video production, and web design. So I was kind of all over the place. Um, I actually have no formal education, just a high school diploma. I was able to transition that role into a true developer role. Uh, excuse me, let me take a drink real quick. Um, I was able to transition that role into a true developer role a few years later when I moved to Oklahoma City. I was able to use a lot of the print portfolio that I had built up over time to help with getting hired in Oklahoma City as well. So in Oklahoma City, I've actually had several developer roles in the area. Eventually, I left my last role and started freelancing as an independent contractor. Um, when I was freelancing as a contractor, I was able to consult with a lot of different companies around the U.S. and some of the more interesting and prominent ones would be GoodRx, Summit Series, Colgate, Dallas Morning News, Infinite Red, Indigo Agriculture, and more. After I consulted for a while, I co-founded my company, Activos Consulting Group, with a co-founder. We were able to bring all of our clients and experience to start a new software consulting company. So our company, ACG, specializes in product development. So we like to really just build products is what we're passionate about. We really like to be able to invest ourselves in something that we're passionate about, which is more product focused things. We do have clients that we've worked with all around the United States. But we have two main products that our company has bootstrapped over time and grown in-house. We focus a lot of our efforts on those, as well as help our clients grow their products and businesses as well. So one product, which is called Activos, is kind of the cornerstone of our company, the name Activos Consulting Group. So Activos is actually a mass messaging tool specializing in collecting responses from a mass amount of people rapidly. We actually sold licenses to this product to the state of Oklahoma for use with DHS and the foster care system. And another product that we're focusing a lot of our time on right now, and I'm very passionate about it, as well as the rest of our company, is a product called Voyage, which basically creates on-demand dev environments for every pull request. So imagine like Netlify or Vercel, if anybody's heard of that, but we basically deploy the entire app, not just the front end. So with that, enough about me. So kind of jumping into why we're here, I kind of want to say, so I have probably at least 10 years of professional experience working as an employee for different companies. Myself as a contractor and co-founding a company as well. And with that, I just want to say I've seen both sides of the table during the interview process. So I've interviewed and accepted several different roles for myself, and then and either as an employee at other companies or at my company now. I've interviewed quite a bit of different candidates, and I've seen both sides, and so I have quite a bit of different things that I'm going to share, and from my experience on both sides. So with that, I can say from my personal experience that I've definitely had great success with providing potential employers with a portfolio. I remember when I was interviewing for different roles as a candidate, I would send my portfolio with my resume as I would apply for the job. And I remember getting calls for interviews and them complimenting something that I had on my portfolio before even scheduling an interview. So I always felt like that gave me an edge. And so one of my, kind of shifting to the other side, one of my biggest complaints when I have interviewed candidates is lack of projects to review. It seems like sometimes people think that a portfolio might only apply to a graphic designer type position, web designer, more design focused roles, which is kind of, you definitely, you may have more things to show as a designer, but I just want to say, in my opinion, I believe that it doesn't matter which role it is, whether it's a designer, developer, front end, back end developer, DevOps. It doesn't matter. I really think that you can showcase your work no matter what your role is. So one of the biggest things that I would say about having a portfolio, especially when you're trying to apply for a job, and maybe it's your first job as a developer, designer, DevOps, whatever, it definitely lowers the barrier of entry. So when a company's hiring for a role in our field, they want to see something. And I can tell you that when I'm interviewing for a role at our company, when I see a resume come in with links to something, I go look at them before I even contact the candidate to see if I like what I see. I end up forwarding it to my colleagues even before the interview. So because they shared that with me, they automatically got to the top of my list, just because they put a link to some sort of example portfolio or just something to showcase what they've done on their resume. If you don't have anything, then you would possibly be subjected to just more time during the interview process, maybe a longer code assessment, things like that. You kind of just have to picture yourself. You kind of have to put yourself on the other side of the table too. And, you can't, when you're hiring for a role in our field that's more skill-based and, you have to have that particular skill, like we have to be able to see something, or at least feel confident, and something has to make us feel confident that we want to offer a position to you. And definitely a portfolio is the best way to do that. So another thing, as you do interview for roles, whether it's your first role or not, a lot of companies are probably going to ask for some sort of coding assessment if it's a developer role. So one thing I want to say about coding assessments is a lot of people will maybe be annoyed because the company made them do that. They don't want to do it. They feel like they should be hired based on just what's on their resume, and they feel like the company is asking too much of them maybe to do these sort of coding assessments. But unless the company's trying to make you come work for like days in the office or just things that are like super unreasonable, you really shouldn't put off coding assessments. I mean, and another thing I would say about it is it's also another item that you can add to your portfolio. Even if, say, you didn't get the job, now you've been able to create, whatever example they were asking of you, and now you've got that in your portfolio. So just take it as another opportunity to learn and create some more stuff for you to showcase. So, again, some people could have different opinions here and there, but I'm really just trying to share from my personal experience on both sides. And you can never go wrong with it's not going to do anything to hurt you. It's only going to help you. So kind of getting into, maybe you don't have a portfolio yet. Maybe you've tried to apply for jobs, or maybe you're at a role. You've been at a role for a little bit and you're thinking of changing things up, looking for a new role. So nowadays, I think the means of having a portfolio has changed a little bit. You don't necessarily have to have like your own custom domain with everything on it. There's a lot of other ways you can do it. Now, for myself, I do have a custom domain. I've had it for a long time, pretty much my entire career. And every time I would want to change things up, look for a new role, things like that, I was always spending a lot of time, bringing it up to date and making sure I had all my latest projects on there, things like that. So it's definitely worked fairly well for me to have that. But it's not necessarily 100% needed. If you're just starting out, there's a lot of other things you could look at. So some of the basics is, just make sure you have a LinkedIn that it's up to date. If you're writing code, if your role is code based, have a GitHub account, have it up to date. Have as much stuff on there as you can. Any projects that you've contributed to. So one thing that I always love to see for developers especially is having open source contributions. So anytime I see an open source contribution on a developer's GitHub, I love to see that. That really makes me like that candidate and want to see more from them. That's always a huge thing, but maybe you don't have that in the beginning. That's okay. Just, start with something. Start like a simple, NPM package that just does something simple, accomplishes something very simple. You just have to start somewhere. So also, if you're more design focused, maybe you would just create a portfolio using like Dribble, which, I'm sure anybody who's more design focused may be familiar with what Dribble is. It's just a good place to showcase designs that you've done. There's also these services now that make it super easy to just combine things onto a simple like landing type page, like Linktree. You could look at something like that where you could just have a landing page that links to your LinkedIn and GitHub, any other social media platforms that you want to show that could have information on them. That's kind of there's a lot of different options. So just keep that in mind. You don't necessarily have to shoot for the moon to start. You just have to have something. And I kind of just as I'm kind of stepping through these slides, you kind of will see what I'm talking about. Some of these things are simple. So anyway, moving forward, if you're like, okay, so what do I need to have on my portfolio? What's gonna do the best for me? Well, I definitely consider what your role is and what role you're hoping to get out of it. So if you're more design heavy, then you should obviously have a more design heavy portfolio. So like kind of in these slides that I'm sharing here, you can see like the one kind of on the left is more, it's got like a page where it's showing a mobile app that they designed. And so, that's good. And then I've just got my simple GitHub account, and I've got another example on here that is more, a little more programming focused, just showing some more example apps that this person has made to showcase on their portfolio. So, I mean, it's kind of, I guess it kind of sounds self-explanatory, but really just try and tailor it to the role that you want. Or maybe you are more design focused, but you're wanting to transition into writing code. Well, that's great. Just have your design stuff, and then start adding some example coding projects to your portfolio. And so anyway, that it's just think about the role that you want, because when employers go or portfolio, and let's say you are applying for a DevOps role maybe, and then all you had is designs. Well, that doesn't help much. So just consider that. So this is kind of a funny illustration, but it's something that I've heard 100 times, and I really just wanted to bring this up because so it kind of illustrates something I've heard from a lot of potential candidates, even more senior ones who may never have had a portfolio or have been with a company for a long time. You've got to, especially when you're applying for a company that doesn't know you, or maybe you were just you're working with a recruiter who just sent your information over to a company. They don't know you. So all they have to look at is your resume, which says that you did these things, but there's nothing to see really, because all it was internal projects maybe. The company that you're trying to apply for just needs to see something. And a lot of people might be like, well, I've done a lot of work at my previous company. Like, I know they can't see it, but I've done a lot of work. But it's like, no one, there's still nothing to show. I've heard a lot of people who, maybe they held like a government position, or position with a security clearance, something like that. And they say, I can't show anything that I've done, but this is what I've done. But, you have to look at how that looks from the other company, unless somebody was like giving you an explicit recommendation, from the company that was able to see what you've done. A company that doesn't know you, that's looking at a resume, maybe you actually did stuff that was pretty impressive, but the company has no way to know. So in those cases, it's best to just, come up with something. If you don't have anything out there, just make something, come up with something that solves some simple problems, write some simple stuff and put it up. Because that's really, at the end of the day, having, it doesn't have to be perfect. We need something. So, it's, if you're expecting a potential company to consider you, I don't think it's unreasonable to spend some time after work, to work on a demo application to show your skills. So it's a two-way street. If you want a company to invest in you, then you need to invest some time into them. So again, it will vary from case to case, but this is what I've seen, and this is my experience. So if now I'm kind of going to jump into some stuff about what you could build. So, don't overthink it. So I've, a lot of people think, a lot of people just tend to overthink what they're adding to their portfolio. No one needs to see, maybe you are applying for a company similar to Amazon or Facebook or something that has like an enterprise product like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to see that. It's just no one expects you to invent another Facebook or Amazon when you're trying to showcase something on your portfolio. If just come up with something that's fun for you to build and create it and add it. So I kind of just screenshotted three little like example applications on the bottom of this slide, and these are three apps that I have on my portfolio right now that I've had on here for years. And these are three like just for fun projects. They were ones that I just came up with and built just for fun, just because I was either wanting to learn a different tech stack or framework, or I wanted to build something that was related to a company I was applying for, and mainly just to have up so people could see that I could do what I said I could do. And sometimes people might think that they need to have actual production applications to show off, and that's not completely the case. In fact, sometimes sometimes I have applications that I've built in production that I've been able to share today, but that wasn't always the case for me. I think a lot of employers, including myself, would be impressed just to see that you built something 100% on your own and you're capable of handling a project start to finish. I think that goes a long way. So just because you haven't built anything in production is not a bad thing. You just have to have something. So, and again, just if you're trying to figure out what stack to build or something like that, just look at the stack of the company that you're applying for and start with that. So I just want to walk through some examples that I pulled from either myself or different colleagues of mine on what you could build for just an example application. So this first one is kind of what I would call like an Evernote clone, and built this one kind of what I was talking about before. I was given a code assessment at a position that I was applying for. So I ended up building this because using the tech stack that position was using. And, not only did doing this code assessment and having an existing portfolio help me get this position that I was applying for, but then I was able to take this and use it for my next position as well as just another item in my portfolio. I still have it up to date and it's working, and it's just something that I can keep in there indefinitely. This was, like I said, just if you interview for 3 roles and they each give you 3 coding assessments, that's great. Just even if you don't actually get the role, now you maybe by the third interview and you already have two apps that you had to build enough to get you that position. So this next one is just a simple chat application. So users can hang out in like a main lobby and DM each other. I mainly built it because at the time I was trying to just, wrap my head around Node and Angular, Socket.io. So I built this a long time ago, actually, and I really wanted to explore those languages and frameworks. So I just built this as kind of a learning experience, and then added it to my portfolio. I'm more of a learning by doing person, and I don't like to just watch a video or read an article. I'm more of a building and creating person. So whenever I want to learn a new language, framework, or whatever, I build something that works. This one's kind of a fun application that was built by a colleague of mine, and it's called Lunchbox. It's a simple application that gives you suggestions for lunch. So it's kind of funny. So we were always joking around the office on like where we want to go for lunch. And, one day we were like, well, instead of spending like 20, 30 minutes messaging back and forth in Slack and no one ever wants to commit to a place, let's just create some fun little tool that we can use internally. So one of my colleagues created this tool, and it's kind of just a fun little thing that we'll toss around the office. And when someone's like, "Hey, what are we eating for lunch?" Now someone's like, "Well, hey, see what Lunchbox says." It's just like a simple application that pulls restaurant data from the Foursquare API and kind of makes suggestions for places that you haven't ate yet in your area. So we created Lunchbox. And there's even a blog article about it as well on this slide, if you're interested to read more about that. So anyway, that was kind of a fun one. So this next one is really interesting. And, these ideas are really just to try and inspire anybody on that. Really, you can build anything. You obviously don't have to build any of these that I'm saying, but maybe it'll help you, think to come up with something else that could be cool that you could look at. So this one was actually sent to me by a friend several years ago, and he graduated from a coding boot camp. And this was like a project. So, a lot of coding boot camps will have, when you finish the boot camp, you'll kind of team up with a bunch of people and kind of create this like finishing type project as kind of your starting point for your portfolio. And so it's a very interesting app, and it's basically like one of those typing websites, but with code. So it presents you with code and you race against the clock to type it out. I thought this was a really great idea for a portfolio. Unfortunately, I don't think the website is up anymore, but I stuck the GitHub repo on here if anybody is interested to clone it and mess around with it. But yeah, and that kind of brings me to another point. Maybe you're saying, I don't have enough experience yet to build anything much. Well, maybe pair up with a couple people and look at building something together and just contributing to something together. That could be something to consider too. Just, find a couple people that are in your same shoes and team up. So maybe consider that. But these are just a couple other portfolios that I wanted to show because I thought they did a pretty good job of showcasing these guys' skills. So the other project that I just showed, these are two developers. I was able to find their portfolios from this project, and so you can see like they've got that coding one on their portfolio, but then they've also got like one guy's got some JavaScript game type stuff, and just some other just random apps and projects that they wanted to build. So you can see it's kind of a nice little variety of things, and I think these are really good portfolios that could be pretty convincing to employers. So, and I know there was this coding assessment had 4 developers contributing to it. I know for a fact that at least 3 of them have landed jobs at big name tech companies. So, having a portfolio in the early stage is definitely the most important. Once you build a reputation for yourself, it may not be, quite as important because maybe you're just advancing in your existing company, or you've been able to network yourself to get a recommendation to another role where they know you, and maybe they don't need to see anything because they've worked with you in the past. And that's definitely the case for a lot of people. But definitely in the early stage, it's super important to have a portfolio. So definitely, like I said before, don't balk at coding assessments, especially if they're not unreasonable. Just always make sure that whether you're applying for your first role or you're applying for your next role, that you've got something that you can show. And pairing with other people, like I said, if you need help to start a project, you can also just clone some existing projects off GitHub, like some of the ones I've shared that are public on GitHub. Clone them down, play with them, instead of having to start from scratch. Even if you did have to fork somebody's project and tweak it a little bit and create your own variation, I think again that's better than nothing. And so you can also, I remember years ago, I used to go through some different tutorial coding websites, stuff like Treehouse I did in the past, which was really cool because you were able to code and then build, and you would actually end up creating like example applications alongside your as you were learning. So being able to create those example applications is a great way to develop your portfolio as well. I know coding boot camps will push you to consistently be pushing projects up to your GitHub as you're going through the program to continue to develop your portfolio. But with that, and if you don't take away anything else from what I've said, the main points that I really have to say is, you need to show something. People want to see something, and you just remember what it looks like from the other side, because it's a two-way street, and if you want somebody to invest in you, you need to be willing to invest a little time in them as well. That's really all I have to share today, but I'm definitely here to ask any questions that anybody has. We can dive into anything. We can look at a portfolio. I can help you brainstorm ideas for a portfolio item, critique it, pretty much anything. So I also dropped my Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, websites, email. Feel free to ask me any questions on any of those mediums. And that about wraps it up. So with that being said, I guess, do we have any